The trading station called Drift floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower. Ships of all sizes came and went through its many docking ports. Aliens of dozens of species walked its wide corridors, buying and selling goods from across the galaxy. It was a place of business, a place of opportunity, and sometimes a place of danger. Stood at the window of her small freighter and watched the station grow larger as they approached. She was not a tall woman. Her black hair was cut short for practical reasons. Her hands were rough from years of hard work. She wore simple clothes, nothing fancy, just what she needed to do her job. She was 28 years old and she had been flying cargo ships since she was 19. Behind her, her younger brother was checking the navigation system. He was 4 years younger than her, tall and thin, with a friendly face that made people trust him easily. He handled the repairs and the technical work on their ship, handled everything else. Their ship was called the Persimmon. It was old but reliable. Had bought it with money she saved for 6 years. It was not beautiful, but it was hers, and she took care of it like it was her child. Docking request accepted, said, Bay 17. Nodded, she guided the ship toward the station with careful hands. Flying was second nature to her now. She had made this trip many times before. Humans had been part of the galactic community for 40 years now. First contact had happened before was born. She had grown up knowing that aliens existed, that faster-than-light travel was real, that Earth was just one small world among millions. To her, this was simply how things were. Most aliens did not think much of humans. They saw them as average, not particularly strong, not particularly fast, not particularly smart by galactic standards. Humans were newcomers, still learning the rules, still finding their place. Most species ignored them or treated them with mild curiosity. The Persimmon settled into its docking bay with a gentle thump, shut down the engines and stood up from her chair. "Let's go meet our client," she said. The station's interior was busy and loud. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some were tall and thin, some were short and wide, some had scales, some had fur. Some had skin in colors that still found surprising after all these years. She walked through the crowd without fear. She had learned long ago that confidence was the best protection in places like this. Their client was waiting in a small office near the cargo loading area. His name was, and he was a. There were thin creatures with skin and 4 arms. They were known as traders and merchants throughout the galaxy. Was old for his kind, his skin darker than most, his movements slow and careful. "Captain," he said in the common galactic language, "thank you for coming." "You have cargo for us," said. It was not a question. "Yes, medical supplies. They are needed on a colony world called. The journey will take 5 days through standard hyperspace routes." Looked at the shipping documents on his tablet. "The pay is good," he said quietly to his sister. Had already noticed that. The pay was better than good. It was excellent. That usually meant there was a problem. "Why so much money for medical supplies?" she asked directly. Made a sound that might have been a sigh. "There have been problems along that route. Pirates, slavers. The syndicate has been active in that region." They had heard of them. They were a reptilian species, cold-blooded, averaging 7 feet tall. They ran the largest slave operation in this sector of the galaxy. They captured ships, took the crews, and sold them to buyers who did not ask questions. "Other ships have been taken?" asked. 3 in the last month, confirmed. No survivors, or rather no free survivors. The crews were sold. Looked worried, could see it in his face. He was not a coward, but he was sensible. He knew when to be afraid. "We've made this run before," said. "We'll be fine." Looked at her with his large, dark eyes. "They are dangerous, Captain. They do not show mercy. They do not negotiate. They take what they want." "Then we won't let them take us." She said it simply, without drama, like she was talking about the weather. Seemed uncertain how to respond. He had dealt with humans before, but he never quite understood them. They were so small, so soft, so fragile-looking, yet they spoke as if they were not afraid of anything. What did not know, what most aliens did not know, was that Earth was classified in galactic databases as a Category 7. This was the second highest danger rating a planet could receive. Earth had extreme temperature variations, high gravity compared to galactic average, a toxic atmosphere full of oxygen, and ecosystems filled with predators and diseases. Most galactic species could not survive there for a single day without protective equipment. But this classification existed only in academic files. Scientists knew about it. Military analysts had read about it. But ordinary aliens had never thought about what it meant. They saw humans and thought, small, weak, harmless. They never asked what kind of creature could survive on a world that would kill most other species. Signed the contract and shook's hand. The cargo was loaded onto the Persimmon within 2 hours. Medical supplies in sealed containers, everything documented and legal. Checked it all herself. As they prepared to leave, asked, "Are you really not worried about the—" Thought about it for a moment. "I'm careful," she said. "That's not the same as worried." The Persimmon departed drift as the station's lights glittered behind them. The ship entered hyperspace with a flash of blue light, and the stars stretched into long lines before disappearing entirely. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, they were waiting. They had been tracking ships along this route for weeks. They had already picked the Persimmon as their next target. They thought they knew what they were hunting. They were wrong. 2 days into the journey, everything was quiet. The Persimmon moved through hyperspace like a fish swimming through dark water. The engines hummed softly. The lights glowed warm. Sat in the pilot's chair, reading reports on her tablet while slept in his cabin. She liked these quiet moments. Space was vast and empty, and sometimes that emptiness felt peaceful. She had spent most of her adult life out here, far from Earth, far from crowds and cities and all the noise of civilization. Out here she could think. Out here she could breathe. The alarm changed everything. It started as a soft beeping, then grew louder. Sat up straight, her eyes moving to the control screens. The ship was slowing down. That should not be happening. They were still 2 days from their destination. She shouted, "Get up here." Her brother arrived within seconds, his hair messy from sleep, his eyes wide with concern. He looked at the screens and his face went pale. "Interdiction field," he said. "Someone pulled us out of hyperspace." Had heard of this technology. It was expensive and illegal in most systems. Pirates used it to trap ships in normal space where they could not escape. It was like a net thrown across the stars. The Persimmon dropped out of hyperspace with a violent shake. The stars reappeared around them, cold and still. And there, directly ahead, was another ship. It was much larger than the Persimmon. Its hull was dark red, covered in sharp angles and aggressive designs. Weapons pointed at them from multiple positions. The ship looked like it had been built for one purpose only, to hurt things. Raider whispered, "The Fang of Prophet, I've seen it in the warning files." A communication signal came through, accepted it, and a face appeared on their screen. The who looked at them was terrifying. He was over 7 feet tall, with dark green scales and yellow eyes with thin vertical pupils. His mouth was full of small, sharp teeth. He wore armor that looked like it had seen many battles. "Human vessel," he said. His voice was deep and cold. "I am commander of the Syndicate. You will shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. If you cooperate, your deaths will be quick. If you resist, they will be slow." Grab's arm. "We have to surrender. Maybe we can negotiate, maybe." "There's no negotiating with slavers," said quietly. She looked at its image on the screen. He was smiling. He thought this was already over. He thought they were just 2 small humans on a small ship, helpless and afraid. "Captain," continued, "you have 30 seconds to comply." Turned off the communication, stared at her in shock. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to handle this," she said. Her voice was calm, almost casual. "Go to the engine room, lock the door from inside. Don't come out until I tell you." "There's no way you can." She looked at him directly. Her eyes were steady and certain. "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" He wanted to argue. She could see it in his face. But he also knew his sister. He knew that when she spoke like this, she had already made up her mind. Nothing he said would change it. "Don't die," he said finally. "I'll try not to." He ran toward the engine room. She heard the door close and lock behind him. Good. He would be safe there. Now she just had to deal with the... She stood up from her chair and stretched her arms. Her body was tense but ready. She had not been in a real fight for years, but some things you never forget. Her muscles remembered what her mind sometimes tried to ignore. The ship attached to the persimmon with a loud clang. She heard the boarding tunnel connect to her airlock. They were coming. She walked to the main corridor and waited. The airlock opened with a hiss. Raiders poured through like water through a broken dam. There were 15 of them, all armed with shock staves and restraint collars. They were huge, their scales gleaming under the ship's lights. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never met prey that could fight back. Commander came last. He was even bigger in person than he had looked on the screen. He saw standing alone in the corridor and laughed. The sound was ugly and cruel. "This is the entire crew?" he asked. "One small female?" "My brother is hiding," said. "It's just me." Walked toward her. His raiders spread out behind him, blocking any escape. Not that was planning to escape. "Brave," said. "Stupid, but brave. You will make an interesting slave. Some buyers pay extra for humans. They say you are exotic." He reached out and grabbed her arm. His clawed hand was rough and cold against her skin. He started to pull her toward the airlock. Moved. It happened so fast that they barely saw it. She twisted her body, grabbed his arm with both hands, and used his own weight against him. She pulled, she turned, and she bent his elbow backward past where it was meant to go. The crack was loud, screamed. His arm bent at an impossible angle, broken at the joint. He fell to his knees, shock and pain flooding his reptilian face. He had never felt anything like this. He had never imagined that prey could hurt him. Released him and stepped back. She looked at the 15 raiders who stood frozen in the corridor, their eyes wide, their weapons half raised. They did not know what to do. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were weak. Humans were easy. Humans did not break arms. Wiped her hands on her pants. Her heart was beating fast now, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Who's next?" Nobody moved. Nobody answered. For the first time in their lives, they did not feel like predators. They felt like prey. The moment stretched like rubber. 15 raiders stood in the corridor, staring at the small human woman who had just broken their commander's arm, was on the floor, making sounds of pain that none of them had ever heard him make before. His arm hung at his side like a piece of dead meat. Then one of the raiders charged. He was young and angry and did not want to look weak in front of his crew. He raised his shock stave and ran at with a scream. The weapon could deliver enough electricity to knock out most species in the galaxy. One touch and she would fall. Did not fall. She moved to the side, grabbed his wrist and twisted. The stave flew from his hand. Before he could react, her knee came up into his stomach. He bent forward, gasping for air. Her elbow came down on the back of his neck. He dropped to the floor and did not get up. 2 seconds, that was all it took. The other raiders finally reacted. 3 of them attacked at once, coming from different directions. They thought numbers would help. They were wrong. Had grown up on Earth, on a planet where everything wanted to kill you. She had taken self-defense classes since she was a child. Her father had taught her to fight, and her mother had taught her to never give up. Humans had been fighting for survival for millions of years. It was in their blood. It was in their bones. She ducked under the first stave and kicked the raider's knee. He fell sideways. She grabbed the second raider's arm and used his own momentum to throw him into the third. They crashed together and fell in a pile of scales and limbs. The remaining raiders hesitated. This was not what they expected. They had captured dozens of ships. They had taken hundreds of prisoners. Nobody had ever fought like this. Did not wait for them to recover. She picked up a dropped shock stave and attacked. In the galactic databases, humans were classified as persistence predators. This meant they did not hunt like other species. They did not ambush. They did not use speed or strength. Instead, they followed their prey for hours, sometimes days, never stopping, never resting, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Then they moved in for the kill. They were not built for this kind of fight. They were ambush predators. They attacked fast, finished fast, and rested. Long battles tired them quickly. Their cold blood meant they needed to conserve energy. Did not tire. She moved through the raiders like a storm through weak trees. She hit and dodged and kicked and threw. A stave caught her in the ribs and pain exploded through her body, but she did not stop. Adrenaline flooded her system, a chemical gift from millions of years of evolution. Her ancestors had faced lions and bears and wolves. What were a few overgrown lizards compared to that? Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye. She ignored it. One of the raiders grabbed her from behind, trying to hold her still. She threw her head back and smashed his nose. He released her and stumbled away, green blood pouring between his clawed fingers. The fight moved through the corridors of the persimmon, used everything around her as a weapon. She hit one raider with a fire extinguisher. She threw another into a wall panel so hard that it broke. She found a length of metal pipe and used it to block shock staves and break arms. They began to panic. They shouted to each other in their own language. They tried to coordinate but was too fast, too unpredictable. She did not fight like the training program said humans fought. She fought like something wild, something that had never learned how to give up. In the cargo bay, 3 raiders cornered her. They thought they had won. They spread out, blocking all escape routes, and moved closer with their weapons ready. Waited until they were close. Then she grabbed a cargo strap, swung it around the nearest raider's leg and pulled. He fell. She jumped on him, using his body as a platform to launch herself at the second raider. Her fist connected with his throat. He went down, choking. The third raider swung his stave at her head. She ducked and the weapon passed over her. She grabbed his arm, stepped behind him, and wrapped her arm around his neck. She squeezed. He struggled, but humans had strong arms and strong grips. Within seconds, he was unconscious. She released him and stood up. Her body was shaking now. The adrenaline was fatting and pain was flooding back. Her ribs felt like they were on fire. Her hands were bruised and bloody. She could barely see out of her left eye because of the blood. But she was standing, and they were not. The remaining raiders looked at her from the doorway of the cargo bay. There were only 5 of them left standing. 5 out of 15. The others were scattered through the ship, unconscious or moaning in pain. Looked at them with eyes that held no fear. She was breathing hard. She could barely stand straight, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Leave now." They ran. They actually ran, those 7-foot predators, those feared slavers of the galaxy. They ran back to their ship like children running from a monster in the dark. Heard the boarding tunnel disconnect. She heard the ship's engines power up. She walked slowly to the bridge and watched through the window as the Fang of Prophet turned and fled into the darkness of space. Behind her, she heard a door open. Emerged from the engine room, his face pale, his eyes wide with shock. He looked at the bodies on the floor. He looked at the blood on the walls. He looked at his sister, battered and bleeding and somehow still standing. He whispered, "What happened?" She turned to face him. Despite everything, despite the pain and the blood and the exhaustion, she almost smiled. "They grabbed me first," she said simply. "That was their mistake." Then her legs gave out and caught her before she hit the floor. 1 week later, sat in a small office at Drift. Her ribs were wrapped in bandages. Her eye was still swollen, but she was alive, and that was more than they had planned for her. Across the desk sat Investigator, a security officer. He was reviewing his report on his tablet, his 4 arms moving in quick, nervous patterns. He had read the report 3 times already. He still did not believe it. "You are saying," he said slowly, "that you alone defeated 15 raiders, armed raiders, including Commander himself?" "Yes," said. "Without weapons." "I used their weapons, and some other things I found on the ship." Made a sound that might have been disbelief. "Captain, I want to believe you, but this seems impossible. They are among the most dangerous species in this sector. They have captured hundreds of ships. Nobody fights them and wins." Shrugged, it hurt her ribs, but she did not show it. "I did." "May I see your ship's internal recordings?" She had expected this question. She pulled out a data chip and placed it on the desk. "Everything is there. Every camera, every angle, watch it yourself." Took the chip with slightly trembling hands. He inserted it into his tablet and pressed play. The video showed everything. It showed grabbing's arm. It showed her breaking his elbow like it was a dry stick. It showed her fighting through 15 raiders, taking hits, giving more, never stopping, never falling. It showed the running away like frightened animals. When the video ended, sat in silence for a long time. His skin had gone even paler than usual. "This is real," he said finally. It was not a question. "Yes. I need to share this with security networks, for safety purposes. Other ships should know that they are active in this area." Nodded. She did not care about fame or attention. She just wanted to get paid and find another cargo run. "Do what you need to do." She did not know what she had started. The video spread quickly. First it went to security networks as had promised, but someone shared it. Within 2 days it was everywhere. Alien news networks showed clips of the fight. Military analysts studied her movements and techniques. Scientists pulled up old files about Earth and read them with new understanding. The video was watched billions of times across dozens of worlds. And the reactions began. The Merchant Guild held an emergency meeting. They decided to upgrade all human trading vessels to a special status. A note was added to their internal systems. "Do not interfere with human ships. Do not assume humans are helpless. Approach with caution." The Syndicate was quieter about their response, but Commander's failure could not be hidden. He had lost 15 raiders to one small human. His arm would never heal properly. His reputation was destroyed. The Syndicate issued a private order to all their ships: avoid humans unless you have overwhelming numbers. Even then, be careful. Scientists who studied alien life became very interested in Earth. They read the old files about humanity's home planet. They saw the classification and finally understood what it meant. Earth had extreme temperatures, from frozen ice to burning deserts. Earth had high gravity that made bones strong and muscles powerful. Earth had an atmosphere full of oxygen, a gas that was actually poisonous to many species. Earth had predators everywhere, from wolves to sharks to tiny insects that spread deadly diseases. Humans had survived all of this. They had not just survived, they had conquered their world. One military analyst wrote a report that became famous across the galaxy. In it he wrote, "We thought the classification meant the planet was dangerous. We were correct, but we failed to ask the obvious question: what kind of creature survives on such a world? What kind of being evolves in an environment that would kill most of us? The answer is now clear. Humans are not weak despite coming from they are dangerous because of it." Knew none of this at first. She just noticed that aliens were treating her differently. They stared at her in the station corridors. They moved out of her way when she walked past. Some of them looked afraid. Tried to explain. "You're famous now," he said, "or maybe infamous. Everyone has seen the video." "I just defended myself," said. "Anyone would have done the same." No, said quietly. That's the point. No one else could have done the same, that's why they're scared. One evening was sitting alone in a bar on the station. She was drinking something local, a blue liquid that tasted like honey and burned like fire. She preferred to be alone. The attention was exhausting. Three young approached her table. They were smaller than, probably just past adulthood. Their scales were lighter, their eyes wider. They looked nervous in a way that had never seen look before. She tensed, ready for trouble, but they did not attack. One of them spoke in halting common language. You are the human from the video. Yes, said carefully. Is it true what you did? Looked at them for a long moment. They were young. They were not syndicate, she could tell. Just young who had grown up hearing that their species was the strongest, the most dangerous, the apex predators of the galaxy. And now they had seen a video that said otherwise. It's true, she said. They shifted nervously. One of them asked, are all humans like you? Thought about her home. She thought about the billions of people on Earth. Each one descended from ancestors who had survived ice ages and plagues and predators and wars. Each one carrying the genetic legacy of millions of years of struggle. We don't start fights, she said finally, but we finish them, remember that. The young left quickly. They did not look back. A few days later, received a message. It was from the Galactic Peacekeeping Coalition, an organization that tried to maintain order across many systems. They wanted to meet with her. They wanted to discuss a job offer. Human security consultants, they called it. They wanted humans to help protect ships, stations, and important people. They had seen what one human could do. They wanted more. Read the message twice, then she deleted it. She was not interested in being a weapon for hire. She was a cargo captain. That was enough. But she knew, even as she deleted the message, that the galaxy had changed. Humans would never be seen as weak again. The video had proven that. And somewhere out there, other species were watching and learning and remembering. Never Caesar, because they will make you regret it. 1 year had passed since the fight on the Persimmon. The galaxy was different now. Ambassador stood before the Galactic Council, a gathering of representatives from hundreds of species. He was an older man with hair and calm eyes. He had spent 30 years as a diplomat, learning to speak carefully and think even more carefully. Today, he would speak for all of humanity. The council chamber was enormous, a vast dome filled with floating platforms where aliens of all kinds sat and watched. Some were friendly, some were hostile, most were simply curious. They wanted to hear what the human ambassador would say about the changes of the past year. Honored representatives, began, his voice clear and steady. 1 year ago, a single human woman defended her ship against 15 armed attackers. She won. Since then, the galaxy has looked at humanity with new eyes. Some of you fear us now. Some of you respect us. Some of you are still trying to decide what we are. He paused and looked across the sea of alien faces. Let me tell you what we are. We are the children of our ancestors survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. They fought predators with nothing but sticks and stones. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They built cities in deserts and jungles and frozen wastelands. Every human alive today carries the genes of survivors, the descendants of those who refused to die no matter what the universe threw at them. The chamber was silent. Every eye was on him. Humanity does not seek conflict. We spent millions of years fighting our own world just to survive. We developed endurance, adaptability, and resilience not because we wanted war, but because our home demanded it. We learned to run further than any predator. We learned to think faster than any threat. We learned to never, ever give up. He let the words settle before continuing. But let me be clear about one thing. We remember how to fight. We protect our own. And if anyone threatens us, if anyone tries to make us victims, they will learn the same lesson that they learned 1 year ago. In the audience, several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We offer friendship to those who want it. We offer trade and cooperation and mutual respect. But we will not be prey. We will not be slaves. We will not be underestimated again. Bowed slightly and returned to his seat. The chamber erupted in conversation as hundreds of species discussed what they had heard. The changes of the past year had been dramatic. Human security consultants were now in high demand across the galaxy. They protected ships, stations, embassies, and important individuals. They were expensive to hire, but they were worth every credit. The word had spread. If you wanted something protected, hire a human. Slaver operations targeting human vessels had dropped by 94%. The few groups that still tried learned quickly why this was a mistake. Human crews did not surrender quietly. Human crews fought back. Several species had requested human military advisors. They wanted to learn how humans trained, how humans thought about combat, how humans turned their heritage into practical skills. Human martial arts instructors became some of the most sought-after teachers in the galaxy. Earth's classification had been upgraded from an academic footnote to a strategic warning. Military planners across dozens of worlds added new chapters to their training materials. Understanding human combat psychology and species, threat assessment. And somewhere in all this change was still flying the persimmon. She had turned down every job offer. She had ignored every interview request. She did not want to be famous. She did not want to be a symbol. She just wanted to carry cargo and live her life in peace. The good news was that her cargo runs were now very peaceful. Pirates avoided her ship like it was cursed. The syndicate had put her picture in their internal files with a simple warning: do not engage under any circumstances. Thought this was funny. You're probably the safest cargo captain in the galaxy now, he said one day as they traveled between systems. Good, replied, I like safe. She was docked at a new station, reviewing cargo manifests, when a young alien approached her. He was a species she did not recognize, with blue skin and large eyes that blinked constantly. He looked barely adult by his people's standards. Excuse me, he said nervously. Are you Captain, the human from the video? Sighed internally. This happened at least once a week now. Yes. The young alien shifted from foot to foot. I wanted to ask you something. Everyone says you were very brave. They say you were not afraid, but I do not understand. How can you not be afraid when 15 enemies are trying to hurt you? It was a sincere question, asked with genuine confusion. Looked at the young alien and saw herself many years ago, before she had learned what she was capable of. I was afraid, she said honestly. The alien blinked in surprise. You were. Yes, fear is natural. Fear keeps you alive. It tells you when something is dangerous. Only fools are never afraid. Then how did you fight? How did you win? Thought about how to explain it. She thought about her parents who had taught her to be strong. She thought about Earth, a world that had made humanity tough without ever asking permission. She thought about all the ancestors who had faced worse odds and survived. They made a mistake, she said finally. They looked at me and saw a small person, a weak person, a victim. They assumed that because I was human, because I was alone, because I was not as big as them, that I was helpless. She stood up from her chair and looked the young alien directly in his large eyes. Never assume. Never think you know what someone can do just by looking at them. And never ever seize because we have been fighting to survive since before most species in this galaxy learned to walk upright. Our planet tried to kill us every single day for millions of years, and we are still here. We did not just survive. We became the dominant species on a world that should have destroyed us. The young alien was staring at her with something like wonder. So yes, I was afraid, continued, but I was also angry and determined and unwilling to let them take me or my brother without a fight. That is what humans are. That is what comes from being born on a we do not give up, ever. She picked up her cargo manifest and headed toward her ship. The young alien watched her go. "Captain," he called after her, "thank you for explaining." She paused at the door and looked back. "Remember what I said, and tell your friends, spread the word. Humans are friendly. We want to be good neighbors in this galaxy, but we are not easy targets, not anymore." She walked back to the Persimmon, where was waiting with news of their next cargo run. Just supplies for a colony world, nothing special. That was fine with her. She had had enough excitement for a lifetime. But as she sat in the pilot's chair and guided her ship away from the station, she allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy knew the truth now. Humans were not what they appeared to be. They were the survivors of a world that never stopped trying to kill them. They were persistence predators, endurance hunters, adaptive fighters. They were, and nobody would forget it again. Outside the window, the stars stretched into lines as the Persimmon entered hyperspace. Somewhere out there, billions of aliens were watching and learning and remembering. The balance of power had shifted, not through war or conquest, but through one small woman who refused to be a victim. Closed her eyes and relaxed into her chair. Tomorrow there would be new challenges, new deliveries, new adventures. But tonight, she was just a cargo captain flying through the stars. That was enough. That was everything.